Two NBA player props here on PrizePicks for Tuesday, February 27th. We have a massive 11-game slate here, but before I get started, you guys take a look in the description below of this video. Hop into our premium Discord. $9.30 per month comes out to 31 cents per day. So I post all the plays I'm making on PrizePicks. We also have other premium cappers in there as well. They post all of their plays, research, and analysis. Super positive community in there. Everyone is trying to help each other cash, you guys. Well over 400 members in the Discord. So again, go ahead and check out the link in the description below of this video and hop in there and join us. But also I want to mention I'm not a gambling expert and this is not financial advice. These are simply just the plays I'm personally looking at making, hopefully giving you guys some insight and analysis to then make your own player prop decisions here. Again, no one's pressing submit on those parlays other than yourselves. But let's get right into it, you guys. Two NBA player props here. Tuesday, Taco Tuesday on PrizePicks. I believe we're going to get the Donovan Mitchell taco here. I do like it. I think obviously it's a strong play, strong matchup here. But yeah, nonetheless, two player props. I'm not including the taco here. Two player props from this slate. Let's get into it. So the first play that I'm looking at here is going to be an NBA first half prop. It's going to be a fantasy score actually. And I'm looking at Evan Mobley over, obviously from the same game, Donovan Mitchell here. I like his over 16 flat first half fantasy score, which should be a pretty competitive back and forth game. Definitely in the first half. But Evan Mobley over 16 first half fantasy score. We take a look at this matchup. Obviously one of the better matchups on the slate as far as just the spread goes. 5-point spread at home for Cleveland, but given how Dallas plays offensively, just with Luka and Kyrie, Dallas, honestly, just games, now that I think about it, they rarely kind of get blown out. And if they do get blown out, it's because Kyrie or Luka doesn't play. But when they both play, they have just too much offensive firepower that I do think keeps them in games, right? Keeps the games competitive here. But for Evan Mobley, right, we look at his first half fantasy score game log this season, right? This is over on Outlier. Again, there's a link in the description. You guys can get a 7-day free trial with Outlier. This is a research betting tool that I do use every single day. And we look at Evan Mobley. He's over this line in 14 of his last 20 games this season. So the hit rate, very strong, right? We're talking about, I mean, over his last 10, 70% hit rate, but over his last 20, 70% hit rate, you guys, over this line. We sort this to at home. He's over in 15 of his last 20 games, you guys. 15 of his last 20. And the Dallas Mavericks just present an absolute elite matchup to power forward. Specifically, on the season, Dallas is giving up the 5th most fantasy points to the power forward position, right? We look at other forwards' first half fantasy score game log this season versus the Dallas Mavericks. Now, we're just talking about here in the first half, right? Similar shot blocking, just kind of do-it-all type of power forwards. I mean, you can compare Victor Wembanyama and Chet Holmgren. I mean, Evan Mobley is in that tier of type of player that can get 1 to 2 to 3 blocks in a first half. Wembanyama had 34, Chet Holmgren had 23, and these are both in the month of February. All these are actually in the month of February. We saw 8 different forwards essentially clear this line in the first half. Actually, it might be more if I do this. In the first half versus the Dallas Mavericks, I mean, you can see the hit rate here. Giannis had 47.3, Paolo 38.6, Wembanyama. I mean, these are similar, like Keegan Murray, right, you could say is kind of similar to Evan Mobley as far as just his body type. He had 25.8 fantasy, 3 blocks in that first half. I mean, you could see the hit rate for power forwards in the first half fantasy score game log versus the Dallas Mavericks. Like I talked about, similar to Evan Mobley, right, just the type of line he would need to hit the over on this line. All right, this is his first half game log this season. Like 8.6 rebounds and 1 assist hits the over on this line. Like, he doesn't even need defensive stats to hit the over, and obviously, if he does get those defensive stats, it'll even add greater upside to this play. We look at Evan Mobley kind of on the season. His rebounds are up at home and his assists are up at home, as well as his steals and blocks, right? Points are down a little bit, but he did have those injuries, and he's played a little bit, 3 more home games than compared to away. But it's just a great spot, you guys, in an absolute smash matchup, which should be competitive. We know Kyrie, Luka love to get into the paint, which could present some great shot blocking opportunities for a player like Evan Mobley. And just given how he's played and how he's performed in the first half, I think he's a lock. Obviously, that minutes restriction is off here. He should be playing 13 to 15 minutes plus minutes at least in the first half in what should be a very competitive game. So Evan Mobley over 16 fantasy score. Like I talked about, you guys, the hit rate. If we even just look at the hit rate on the season, right, home games, right, 14 of 18 home games this season, he has hit the over on this line in an absolute elite matchup. I think if they haven't faced each other this season, right, yet. So obviously this is dating back to last year. But over his last 20, you guys, 14 of his last 20 games, he's hit the over on this line. Some massive first half games as well this season for Evan Mobley. So I like him over 16 first half fantasy score as the first play. Second play is going to be another fantasy score line. It's going to be a full game here, another power forward, and just an absolute elite matchup. And I just think the upside's too high. I like Jalen Johnson over 42 fantasy points. Now, 42 fantasy points is a lot of fantasy points, right? It's a lot. But Jalen Johnson, the type of player he's evolving into, just kind of a do-it-all forward, defensive impact type of forward. It's pretty crazy what he's become. So we look at Jalen Johnson again over on Outlier, right? He's only over, or sorry, this is PRA. I just wanted to show you guys PRA to give you guys an example of this matchup versus Utah. Like we talked about Dallas being an elite matchup to power forwards. Utah is the most elite matchup to power forwards in the NBA. They're allowing the most points to power forwards, the 13th most rebounds, and the most assists to power forwards. Okay, so we know, obviously, even just taking a look at this, the Utah Jazz give up the most fantasy points to the power forward position, and it's really kind of not even close, right? 1.3 more fantasy points to the next team, which is the Wizards. 53.4 fantasy points that the Utah Jazz are giving up to power forwards. Okay, so we look at Jalen Johnson. All right, we go back to Outlier here again. Link in the description below of this video. 7-day free trial with Outlier, and we take a look. Now Outlier does show fantasy scores, which again, really great tool, really useful tool if you guys are making player prop bets on PrizePicks. Jalen Johnson's over this line in 5 of his last 10, right? We go to 10 of his last 20. So the hit rate is decent, okay? We take a look at 50% hit rate. I mean, that's all we can kind of want specifically in this scenario. Obviously, with the 50% hit rate over his last 20, we sort this to at home 11 of his last 20. So just 11 of his last 20, pretty decent, right? But let's use some filters here for Jalen Johnson. So obviously, Onyeka Okongwu and Trey Jones are both out. This season without Onyeka Okongwu, he's over this line in 3 of 4 games without Onyeka, right? Jalen Johnson is playing backup center on this team. We take a look kind of his minutes. I guess we can look at it here on Outlier. His minutes per game without Onyeka, 36, 38, 37, and 38.9, right? He's playing a ton of minutes. He's playing a ton of minutes at the backup center as well, which in my opinion, super athletic backup center like Jalen Johnson, if he's playing the 5, it just gives him a ton of opportunities, you guys, to rack up those fantasy points, right? We take a look at just this last game that he did have, right, without Trae Young and without Onyeka, right, on February 2 days ago versus the Magic at home, which again, the Magic debatably a very tough matchup against forwards. He played 39 minutes, 21, 10, 7, 1, and 2. Okay, and in that game, what did he finish with? 52.5 fantasy points in that matchup. Okay, now like I talked about, with Utah Jazz giving up the most fantasy points to the power forward position, but this season, right, or essentially over the last 60 days with Onyeka Okongwu off the court, okay, Jalen Johnson's averaging 41.2 fantasy points per 36 minutes. Now this is over the last 60 days. If we do this over the last 30, right, since essentially the January 29th, Jalen Johnson per 36 minutes, 45.3 fantasy points per 36 minutes with Okongwu off the court, 1.3 fantasy points per minute. Now that obviously filters in Trae Young being off the court as well, but Jalen Johnson averages 4.3 more points, 1.6 more rebounds, and essentially 1.6 more total, or sorry, 1.6 more rebounds, 4.3 more points, 1.2 more assists, 1 more steal, and 1.4 more blocks per 36 minutes. He averages 0.5 more fantasy points per minute with Okongwu off the floor and 15 total fantasy points per 36 minutes with Okongwu off the floor. Now, like I talked about, with the elite matchup it is versus the Jazz. Look at this forwards, okay? This is literally just since the earliest game is January 27th. So exactly in the last 1 month, forwards fantasy score game log this season versus the Jazz, logging 28 plus minutes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 different power forwards, essentially, or forwards, have hit the over on this line. Like Rui Hachimura had 42.6 versus the Jazz on the road, 36 points, 2 rebounds, and 1 assist in 1 block, right? I mean, Jalen Johnson in this spot, I think, can really, really produce. We saw PJ Washington and Miles Bridges in this same game both go for 50 plus. Chet Holmgren 56.1, Giannis 58.9, Kevin Durant 60.1, Draymond Green 54.5. Draymond Green had 23, 5, 5, 4, and 2 against the Utah Jazz. Okay, I mean, even if we do this to show more, just to show types of some of these games that some of these players have had, I mean, this is just going back to like December 28th. You can see the hit rate for these players. Zion 48, Miles Bridges, we went over that. Bojan Bogdanovic 53.9, right? we can see the games these types of players have had. Jalen Johnson, a fantasy monster in my opinion. I like the over 42 fantasy score for him. Here are the 2 plays for this YouTube video, guys. Video was a little bit longer than I wanted it to be. Massive slate today. Taco Tuesday. In the Discord, having all my taco pairs. Already posted 2 pairs last night here for NBA. Extreme, elite value. Let me know in the comments below how you feel about these 2. Drop a like, hit the subscribe button, and as always, let's cash.